Good evening. Following program is sponsored by Roller Kingdom. If next time you're in the greater Reno, Nevada area, please make sure you check out Roller Kingdom for all of your roller skating needs. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I hope you all had a fine evening. Apologize for some of my mild lateness this evening. The reason for my mild lateness, the reason for the late start time is this evening is the bas mitzvah, which you can call the 12th birthday of my youngest daughter. She became 12, which means that she now is obliged to follow all Torah commandments, same as any other adult. And so we had a little party for her. And it was actually a surprise party, believe it or not. I know she knew she was turning 12, but still, we did an okay job at it. I don't know. It's surprising her. Okay job, I guess. Sort of okay job at it. Well, anyhow, there you go. She certainly seemed very happy. It was great to see, thank God, my entire family. And that's why things were late. And then when I actually got back here in time to start on time. We had some technical difficulties with Rumble, which I believe have been fully sorted. So if you're wondering why we're late, you can blame Rumble and the folks in the ghetto, whom I love, and basically bent over backwards and waited to start the show to make sure that they could be fully active participants. What do we have going on this evening? Well, it seems like this is a really, really, really bad day for fans of the Biden administration. We got issues with corruption, exposing. We got Tulsi Gabbard coming after him. We've got RFK calling them out. We even have them being called out in court. All in all, really, it's been a tough week for them. It's been a very, very tough week for them. I've got updates for you with respect to the Iran war. I got updates for you across the globe. I have a million stories to cover with you. What else did I have? I got, yeah. They're looking to overturn the Rooney Rule. Those of you who are fans of the NFL might be familiar with the Rooney Rule. I'll explain to you what that is. But it's a fight against DEI. In other words, it's been a time of winning. Yes, a time of winning for MAGA. And that's what this whole show tonight is about. It's about MAGA winning yet again. MAGA winning yet again. The losers are crying. There's some folks out there who just love basking in misery, but I prefer to look at things the exact opposite way, that this is a time of great joy, and we need to keep pressing forward. Does that mean there aren't people who are disappointments? Of course there are. Terrible disappointments. And I'm thinking of Pam Bondi. I'm thinking of John Thune. I'm thinking of a bunch of people. But you look at the job that Trump has been doing, I think this man deserves to be celebrated, and I continue to celebrate him and his accomplishments and successes. And I think that we need to basically be yelling at the rest of our GOP leadership that you kind of suck a lot, and to hold their feet to the fire a lot. Like, not let up. I don't think we should let up at all, especially on our Senate GOP during this particularly tenuous time when we need to see the Save America bill passed ASAP, pronto. So all that coming up and more. Plus, I've got a goal this evening, which is if we get 15 super chats, Rumble rants, or I guess donations, PayPal, whatever, of 10 quantities of $10 or more, I will be doing a show Saturday night. That's right. You're basically, instead of Roller Kingdom, you'll be sponsoring me to be doing a show on Saturday night. And here to help win hearts and minds with me this evening is the one and only Mr. Talent himself. Just phenomenal, exceptional insight, keen perspective, who scours the internet to find the best stories, best topics for us to be talking about. I'm talking about a man who's a myth and he's a legend. He's here with me this evening. That, of course, is Jim Teller from Jim Tells You. How are you?
Hey, how's it going, Joe? Mazel tov.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. Much obliged to you.
I would sing Hava, but I don't know all the words, so I sound stupid. Hava, Nagila, Hava. That's about all I know.
That's 2/3 of the words because there's only one other word. But you probably couldn't pronounce the next word. The next word is v'nismecha.
Yeah, no, I don't even know. It sounded like you just spit.
And you say it with me. Ve
Vi,
nis
Vinnis,
me
me,
cha.
Vinnis, mecha.
V'nismecha.
Vinnis, mecha. I'll learn it. I'll
I
get
guess
it
there's
down.
another one which is hava neranana, hava neranana, hava neranana, v'nismecha. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, we're not going to bother
I
with
don't get the whole Rooney rule, though. I don't understand. What's the problem if they have to hire short people like Mickey Rooney?
that. The Rooney rule. I'd like to get there at some point this evening. If I don't have it queued up here in all of my tabs, which I went back to Brave. There was so many pop-ups I was getting on Chrome. I was just like, I can't deal with this anymore. To hell with this. So tonight you will be pleased to know that this boomer has decided to rid himself and you of the annoying pop-ups that show up everywhere. I actually want to start with a little bit of a smaller story. A smaller story, which is something that I found myself. This is because I said I'm celebrating Trump tonight. That's why I decided. I said we need to enjoy. You sort of need to bask and enjoy the times that we have, and what we have here is a president who is just a pleasure to listen to. He is. I know that the left can't stand him, but this guy is just an ultimate pleasure to listen to. This is him, where he goes in on Gavin Newsom.
I don't care about the Democrats. The Democrats hate our country. The Democrats are in chaos right now, and they have no common sense. You know, they have one quality that's amazing. They stick together. And it's harder because they stick together in a ridiculous policy like men playing in women's sports, open borders for everybody, including murderers and anybody else that want it. We're open to you. Come in, murderers. You know why they do that? They do that for a couple of reasons, but they do it for votes because they think they're going to vote for the Democrats. Even though I did great with the Hispanic vote, tremendous with the Hispanic vote. You know, I turned that whole thing around. The Hispanics like me and I like them. And you know, it's interesting with the Hispanics. When I built the wall, everybody said, oh, that's going to ruin us for the Hispanic. It was just the opposite. They know all about immigration and they know all about death and crime, and they're smart people and they have common sense. They wanted to be protected from the people that were coming into our country. So
they wanted to be protected from the people they're getting away from. Basically, it's like they don't want the sketchier element getting in here. They don't want the legal immigrants from Central and South America. They want a wall. They do. They're like, yeah, no, we're really good with the wall. Please. And the reason they bother going through the whole legal process is because they recognize that there's a value to being an American, and they don't want that watered down by people coming across here. It's common sense.
You know, I won the election with a very tremendous Hispanic vote, and I think it's higher now than it was then. So we're a party of common sense. The Democrats are a party of insanity. They're a party that will destroy our country. If I didn't win this election, I believe our country would have been destroyed by now. 1 year, that's all it would have taken. If you had Kamala or Sleepy Joe, either one, it wouldn't have mattered. They're the same thing. Two sleepy people, two stupid people. I believe, and by the way, Gavin Newsom, who is one of the candidates.
There we go.
I believe he took himself out of the running when he says he suffers from mental disability. And a reporter said it was terrible.
Look at Pistol Pete snickering next to him. He's like, here he goes.
Somebody with mental disability. I said, I have no problem with it, but I don't want a person with mental disability to be my president. I mean, you don't want to have a person with mental disability being your president. And Gavin Newsom said that he can't read a speech. He can't do almost anything. And then he said he's as dumb as all the people in the room. And he got accused of being a racist, which was an amazing set. I thought it was the worst interview I've ever seen anybody give. He's actually a very stupid person. So I believe he's out of the running. I think that statement, that interview, he admitted that he's a stupid person.
This is the president of the United States. I love this. When are we going to see this again? J.D. Vance wouldn't riff off like this. We're not going to see this. It's going to be I think it's going to be a while before we see someone who could just like go out there and just riff about how terrible the other side is and just not pull any.
We won't see
punches
this
like
again until Barron is president.
maybe I don't know.
Want a stupid person being president. You know, I'll say it right now. I say it because no press never reports it. I'm the only president that ever took a cognitive test. I took it 3 times.
There he goes.
It's actually a very hard test for a lot of people. It wasn't hard
There
for
he
me.
goes. It wasn't
It's
for
a
me.
cognitive test. It starts off with an easy question. And by the time you get to the middle, it gets tougher. By the time you get to the end, very few people can answer those questions. They get
Joey, if you pause it for just 1 second, I'm sorry. I hate to stop Trump, but
No,
I
it's
heard Biden did take a cognitive test.
Yeah.
Problem was they couldn't get past the first question. Who's the president? That is the first question in a cognitive test. Who's the president of the United States?
It is?
Yes.
That's funny.
It's a standard test. And, that's what I thought would be hysterical. It's like they're going to ask Joe Biden who's the president. He's got this look on his face like, oh my God, I don't know.
Is that your question?
equations and things. I took it 3 times. I aced it all 3 times. In front of
I knew who president was. I knew who the president was. I knew even when I wasn't president, Joe Biden wasn't president.
He said, Doc Ronnie told me this. My current doctors, who are fantastic doctors, they said, well, if you take it, you know, it's Walter Reed. It's essentially a public hospital. And if you do badly, it's probably going to get out. But I aced it. I got them all right. And one doctor said, I've never seen anybody get them all right. I've been doing the test for 20 years.
Nobody's ever got to go to score as
Never.
you are. No one's been as
Never.
cognizant as you, Trump.
No one
Most
is as
cognizant
cognitive,
ever.
as cognitive as you are. You're the most cognitive person ever. There are people out there who think they're cognitive. They have nothing on you.
He just sees everything. He sees it all. He knows what's going on. You can't get anything over on him. He
If you want
knows.
5D chess, you need to be the most cognitive person on the
Yes.
planet, and that's why we voted for him to be president.
I want people, I would love to see anybody that's a president or a vice president or anybody that has any chance of being a president. I would like to see them take a cognitive test, because we had a man in this office that had no clue what was happening. And let me give you a little secret. He wasn't a smart man 30 years ago.
He was starting down here, and then it just tailored down, just tailored off.
About President Obama, he wasn't a smart man either. I know all about him. He wasn't a smart man, highly overrated. He was a great divider, and our country can't go through that anymore. Can't go through. We have done an amazing job. I had to do a little stopover. I call it an excursion. I had to do a little stopover in Iran, and we had to knock the hell out of them because our country would not have been safe. The world wouldn't have been safe. I've done a great favor for the world. The world has not been reciprocal, because when I told NATO, where we give billions and billions of dollars, trillions over the years, I said, do you mind coming up and giving us a little hand with the streets? Send up some. They didn't want to get involved. And I believe that's going to cost them dearly. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, so that was Donald Trump doing what Trump does, being as Trump as you can be. That is him as Trump as you can be. I figured you guys would enjoy that. And in an evening when I'm celebrating Donald Trump, I felt like it's good we should start with what makes him so awesome. And
Did you see that interview that he was talking about with Newscomb? Because I saw it. It was pretty bad. Like he
Oh,
goes,
the one when he was-
I'm just as dumb as all you guys.
Yeah. As
Like,
all you
what?
are. I'm just as he basically like, I'm as dumb as a black person. That's
Yeah.
what he basically said. I'm as dumb as a black person.
I can't read. I don't know how to read either. I don't
I
read
can't
books.
read either.
I see everything backwards. I don't read.
Words.
Words. Yeah.
Words are hard.
It's like, oh, geez.
It's just
That was like he said, oh, you got hot sauce in your purse? Watch this.
that was pretty awesome. Anyway, so I thought that we should start by talking about that, but I want to continue by telling you about his successes this evening. His successes include that he's been working out on this whole Iran conflict, which it seems as if it might be coming to a close. We're working on. We should all pray that this ends quickly. So Trump says he's delaying the destruction of Iranian energy plants by 10 days. Now, he had threatened that he's going to close it, and they certainly rejected his initial overtures, but he still is giving them time to sort of, come back, I guess, with a counter offer as to what it is that they're looking for. And he posted out, as per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I'm pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by fake news media and others, they are going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So there you go. He's saying this is the statement for the records that, hey, we're not going to attack their energy before April 6th at 8 p.m. April 6th that comes out to be, what day is that? That's going to be a week from Monday. Before we
should have planned it out so that it fell on April 1st.
April Fools. You could still bomb them then and say April Fools.
Oh, he could, yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess. Yeah, that would work.
And as per that, Trump says Iran allowed 10 tankers through the Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, as a sign of good faith for talks. U.S. President Donald Trump said on March 26 that Iran had given the United States a present in the form of several boats carrying oil, as per the Epoch Times. To show that they were serious and reliable, Iran had planned to send more than 8 large vessels of oil, he said. He initially thought nothing of it, but then he saw a news report stating that 8 ships were moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump, speaking during a cabinet meeting, reiterated that his administration is having very substantial talks with Tehran to resolve the conflict. Iranian officials gifted the United States 10 boats of crude oil to show that they were real and solid during negotiations, he said. I guess we're dealing with the right people, the president said. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats, and ended up being 10 boats. So that was, I guess this is an oil gift, right? Earlier this week, the president hinted that Tehran was giving the United States a present related to oil and gas worth a tremendous amount of money. It does seem like it's worth a lot of money. In recent days, Iran has implemented a de facto system requiring ships to submit documentation, undergo vetting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, according to Lloyd's List, the Maritime Intelligence Service. In some cases, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has been extolling a passage fee, Lloyd's List noted. Analysts of Lloyd's List intelligence data reveals that at least 16 vessels have transited the strait since Friday, the firm said in a March 25th report. 13 vessels headed east out of the Middle East Gulf, while 3 entered westbound. It's unclear if Trump's reference 10 tankers was among those noted by the intelligence service. Iranian negotiators are very different and very strange, he wrote on his social media platform. We lose track of just how different that culture is. I'm going to tell you a story that I just heard yesterday from my son of an experience that he had this week in dealing with Middle Eastern customs, which is, it's so different from anything that we're used to. They're begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated and zero chance of comeback, and yet they publicly state that they're only looking at our proposal. Wrong. So you don't go out there and say that they're only looking at our proposal. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff confirmed in the meeting that he delivered a 15-point proposal and aimed at ending the ongoing armed conflict with Iran. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent thinks energy prices will eventually come down once shipping traffic resumes along the vital artery between Iran and Oman. The global checkpoint handles approximately 20 million barrels of oil and petroleum products daily, with most of the shipments destined for Asia. I'm confident that shipping traffic will continue to increase on a daily basis even before we secure the straits. Crude oil prices have surged since the start of the war in Iran, but there's been a divergence between the U.S. and global benchmarks. A barrel of West Texas Intermediate climbed by almost 5% on March 26 to above 94. The New York Mercantile. Brent, an international benchmark for oil prices, also advanced by nearly 5% to 102 per barrel. While U.S. oil prices had accelerated as high as 119 per barrel, they have since retreated due to a plethora of measures enacted by the current administration. So it's not like he's not cognizant of what's going on. He's certainly looking to keep prices down on oil, and I do think that they're correct that it will come down. What were you going to say, my friend?
I saw something. I don't remember. I don't know if it was on. It could have been on your show last night. I don't know. And if it was, I apologize. But
That's
something
okay.
about that America is basically positioned because of what Trump's done to be like the biggest exporter of oil and natural gas in the world.
Right. I know where you saw that. It was on Tim Pool.
Was on Temple. Okay, it was. Oh yeah, Tim Pool's post. Okay. Yeah.
And it's actually something that I'm going to get to in just a moment.
All right.
Yeah. That's
Sorry.
something I'm going to get to in just a moment. So good on you for being prescient. The potential economic damage may have been reversed once the war is over, Trump said. My predictions have been right. The economic outlook has been clouded by the Iranian conflict. Some argue the recession risk, back-to-back wars, and negative gross domestic product growth remain elevated. Others say U.S. economy remains insulated from oil price shocks and war in the Middle East. I don't think we're insulated. I think we're sort of buffered a little bit. We're buffered because of our own reserves. But I am going to explain to you something. There's an article which Tim Pool pointed me toward, and I'm going to look at that article with you over here from 10 Delta, where he basically is talking about how the what we've seen going on has set America up to be the dominant economic superpower for the foreseeable future, with no one, even with the rest of the world being thoroughly dependent on us for their energy. So, which just, it almost makes us, it's almost like we've sapped the power that the Gulf states, the Arab League, had in being able to produce energy for the world. And that's what Trump has helped orchestrate. But I'm going to get there in just a moment, because I think it's a really interesting thing. Brian, I'm saying it's tough everywhere. It is tough everywhere. It is. People find it, a little bit of struggle is probably good for the soul. It's tough. Things are tough. Things are tough here at home for me, but you keep plowing. Keep plowing. And then you actually, that's what makes it an accomplishment, right? If it's just something that's easy, then it's not an accomplishment. It's the fact that it's tough. That's what makes us feel like, that's what builds our humanity. Thank you. You're welcome. You're very welcome, Brian. Daniel Weimer, hey, Joe, in your professional opinion, what is the best greeting for people at Walmart? The first thing is, what the best thing would be you walk up to them and you basically blow the horn. They love that. They do. It's a little known fact. You walk right up with one of those, what we call a chauffeur, like a ram's horn, you just blow that. It's pretty much a way of acknowledging that you recognize the privilege it is to come face to face with someone who's going to be greeting you at Walmart. That's probably, thank you for standing me. Thank you for standing here. Have a nice day. I do get where he's getting at. Like, they say hi when they greet you. You know those greeters, right? Do you have something you say beyond hi?
I don't make eye contact with.
You don't make eye contact. You're such a snob.
No, I just go, hey, how you doing? I say good morning, good evening, whatever it is, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is.
You ever treat them like an information desk?
No.
Like, where do I find batteries?
Amazon.
Do that? You walk up to the Walmart greeter. That would be such a great response. You walk up to an Amazon greeter and you say, hey, where do I find batteries? And they say back to you, Amazon. I don't think they keep their job very long, but that would be a great response. That'd be funny. But I think if you actually create an interaction for them, Daniel, I think that's a kindness that you're doing for them, because it's got to be that's got to be a job that no one aspires to be a Walmart greeter, right? I mean, that's not like a life career. That's not a career choice, right? So I think you should be extra nice to them.
If you want to have a very exciting and informative visit to Walmart, go up to the greeter and just say, hey, would you like to join a union? And you will be followed around the store by management.
I'm sure. Hey, I'm looking out for you. I'm looking out for you. So, anyhow, let's get into this article, which was written by 10 Delta. I'm not sure who this individual is. I mean, what he basically describes himself, if you want to know who he is, he describes him as macro agricultural civilization, long sunlight, long soil, long kilowatt hours. This is an article. Do you remember what was their name? I always think of Ren and Stimpy. Adam and Sitch and Adam. You heard of them? Sitch
Yeah,
and
I know who
Adam?
they are. Yeah.
This is like their perspective on war, that all war is over energy, is over money, right? So that's the attitude that 10 Delta here is basically taking, and could be. I think there's a lot of logic in what he says. 3 weeks ago, I argued the U.S. goal in Iran is to seize the global oil spigot. Venezuela in January, Iran in February. Neutralize every supply chain outside the dollar system within 90 days. Achieve a compliant successor government and complete energy dominance. The oil thesis was the obvious layer. However, when you zoom out and view the last 4 years as a single sequence rather than isolated geopolitical events, the architecture of the grander U.S. plan becomes visible. First was Europe, which laid the groundwork. The Ukraine conflict provided the justification for sanctions that collapsed Russian pipeline gas from 150 billion cubic meters to 40. Then Nord Stream was destroyed, which rewired the entire European energy system permanently. The U.S. went from supplying 28% of Europe's LNG in 2021 to 58% by 2025, more than doubling, exporting a record 111 million MTs, which I think is metric tons, the first country in history to break 100 MT. Europe was transformed from a customer with options into a captive market, now purchasing its survival in US dollars. Second was Syria. The fall of Assad served the critical node connecting China's Belt and Road Initiative to the Mediterranean. The trilateral railway linking Iran, Iraq, and Syria, designed to bypass Western maritime choke points, was completely destroyed. So now you got to come through us. The isolated Iran geographically and cleared the path for what came next. Third was Venezuela. In January, the U.S. effectively took control of the world's largest heavy crude reserves. The U.S. Gulf Coast has the most advanced refining complex on Earth, specifically built for heavy sour crude. Phillips 66, Valero, and the rest are now positioned to process hundreds of thousands of barrels of Venezuelan crude daily. The U.S. captured a massive strategic reserve and solidified its position as the dominant exporter of refined petroleum products, an industry worth $110 billion in 2025 alone. Venezuela and Iran were the two major oil supply channels that existed outside of the dollar system.
Not anymore.
Both produce heavy crude sold primarily to China and evaded U.S. financial supervision, both now being neutralized within 90 days, which leads us to fourth, Iran and the Middle East energy shock. Israel struck Iran's South Pars gas field, supposedly against the wishes of Trump, but I don't know. The world's largest natural gas reservoir Iran had, and then what happens is when Iran retaliates, who they retaliate against? Qatar. Ras Laffan, the single largest LNG facility on Earth, responsible for a fifth of global supply. Qatar Energy's own assessment is that 17% of export capacity is gone, and recovery will take up to 5 years. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. European gas prices spiked 70%. Asian spot prices doubled. The only remaining scaled supplier? The United States. If Iran falls and a successor government is installed that the U.S. controls or influences, the Delsey model described weeks ago, then roughly 40 to 45 million barrels per day of global production out of 103 million is effectively under U.S. control. All of a sudden, we basically are controlling all the oil. OPEC becomes irrelevant because the U.S. coalition is now the marginal producer. Now add the gas dimension, and it goes beyond oil. It's basically all energy. This war is solidifying the petrodollar system as it evolves into a hybrid petrol LNG dollar. The old system was built on Saudi crude, priced in U.S. dollars. The new system is built on American crude plus American gas from the Gulf Coast with no alternative supplier of comparable scale. The dependency is deeper because LNG infrastructure requires long-term contracts and regasification terminals that lock buyers into supply relationships for decades. So they're not going to just be able to you can't just flip and change your mind. Europe and the Pacific allies, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, cannot pivot away as there's nowhere left to pivot to. They're now locked into the U.S. energy system. The market confirms this. DXY went from 96 to 101, gold down 20% from its January all-time high, Bitcoin down 20% on the year, Brent above $100. European and Asian institutions are liquidating precious metals and crypto to buy dollars because they need dollars to buy the only remaining scaled energy supply. The world is selling its gold to buy American energy in American currency. The dollar is now being weaponized through energy dependency. The structural repricing is happening regardless of how the conflict resolves, but the U.S. grand strategy goes deeper. Artificial intelligence is a physical industry. It runs on power and chips. Data centers require massive, uninterrupted baseload electricity, primarily provided by natural gas, which is where we are king. Semiconductor fabrication requires helium and rare earths.
That is why our energy prices spiked up after the invasion of after the Nord Stream. If you notice, all our electricity prices in the U.S. spiked pretty drastically because we started selling all that natural gas, liquefying it, and selling it in Europe.
Right,
and that's what powers all the plants. Basically, not all the plants. I mean, I know we have nuclear, we have hydroelectric, but I think 40% or 45% of all of our electricity is generated through natural gas. Like all the peaker plants, they have these peaker plants, which is I was in the electrical industry for over 30 years, so I know a little bit about electricity. That's all I'll say about that. But anyway, anytime there's hot weather and you got a spike in air conditioning, you're going to have massive power spikes. California has different things. They have what's called peaker plants that come online just to fire up to make enough electricity so that they don't have brownouts.
Right.
Those are all natural gas.
Right.
They're gas turbine engines. They're all natural gas. So,
by choking the Strait of Hormuz, a crippling Middle Eastern LNG and helium production, the U.S. is systematically degrading China's ability to power its data centers and fabricate semiconductors at scale. The U.S. is energy self-sufficient, especially with newly captured Venezuelan reserves and expanding Gulf Coast capacity running on domestic gas. On the other hand, China is import dependent, and every joule it imports effectively now transits choke points the U.S. Navy controls. Iran was the Belt and Roads overland energy bypass, so they didn't have to go through American checkpoints. The corridor that allowed China to mitigate the Malacca trap. With Iran neutralized, that corridor is severed. China faces a world where its compute infrastructure competes for scraps on depleted global LNG markets, while American data centers run at full capacity on domestic energy. Russia's next in the sequence. A post-war Iran reopening under U.S. influence competes directly with Russia for the same refineries in China and India at lower cost. Iran's production costs are lower. Russia loses its last structural advantage in heavy crude and its economic lifeline. Additionally, under the Iran war cover, Ukraine has been opportunistically destroying Russian energy infrastructure, and all signs point towards Russia being at the end of the line. The message from Washington becomes very simple. We dismantled 2 regimes in 3 months. Your economy is about to get crushed. Sign the Ukraine deal, meaning that this has given Trump tremendous leverage in dealing with Putin. Then Trump sits down with Xi holding every card. Complete energy dominance, the hybrid petrol LNG dollar fortified, Iran cleared, Russia cornered, and China facing the Malacca trap fully closed with no remaining energy bypass. Israel and the GCC are absorbing the kinetic cost of conflict, meaning that they're the ones who are getting the bombs blasting them. Thank God we're never, we're not facing that. So Israel's the one who's absorbing that, and the kinetic cost of a conflict whose primary beneficiary, counter to the mainstream narrative, is actually America first. Meaning he's making a play on words here. Meaning this whole war that people love saying is for Israel's benefit is frankly, from a financial perspective, far much more in America's perspective than it is in Israel's perspective. It's an American interest. Qatar offline for 5 years replaces the entire global gas market in favor of U.S. exporters for the remainder of the decade. The Gulf states face years of rebuilding. Europe faces its second energy crisis in 4 years. Sure, the average American might face temporary moderate inflation, higher gas prices, but if you're the architect of the U.S. empire and you view the rise of China and Chinese ASI as an existential winner-takes-all scenario, the collateral damage is an acceptable cost. Whoever controls the energy corridors controls the monetary system. Whoever controls the monetary system and the energy supply simultaneously controls the compute infrastructure that determines which civilization builds ASI first. And the U.S. is seizing all three. So when you talk about American first interests, the way he lays it out here, this has given us a massive, massive opportunity at seizing the energy industry by the cojones and basically making the dollar from a long-term perspective much stronger, much stronger. A dollar which everyone's been terrified is going to collapse because of our hyper spending. This is how you help refortify it.
And I will let everybody know that the largest construction projects that are going on in the U.S. right now are all data centers. Money-wise, I mean, you're talking multi-trillion-dollar projects building data centers, and there's hundreds of them going up in the U.S. right now, hundreds.
All right. Hey Joe, the White House just posted a cryptic message video to their account. I DM'd you the enhanced reverse audio to decipher the message. Odd. Okay, I'll try to check that out. Danny Weimer says, I just got finished watching a show from last night and caught your cuffling story from the wedding. Had to give you a job and you rolled with it like a pro. Oh, I missed the joke when he said your professional opinion. That's really funny. What's the best greeting? That's clever. That was much more clever than, yeah. I rolled with it because I was like, all right, let me give an answer. Let me give an answer. But that's very funny. That's really funny. I'd forgotten that I told that story over yesterday, where someone basically asked me a question in my professional opinion about suits and how long is the proper length.
And I will say another thing on the data centers. It looks like Trump is trying to not force, but he's trying to. All the people are saying they're going to have their own electrical supply. Basically, they're going to build their own kind of that's what they're going for, like these mini nuke plants or some type of energy production for the data center, so that they don't make everybody's rates go through the roof.
Right. So, yeah, this is a side to the Iran war that we don't really think about that much, right? We think about our military being involved. We think about the cost of war, but the positioning of American dominance in energy is not something that tends to be much of a factor, which is why I'm glad you called attention to that, because I think there's a lot of truth to that article there. So where was it? Closing.
I didn't even remember if I shared that with you. That's why I was bringing it up. I didn't know if I didn't remember.
I didn't see it from you. I actually stumbled on it right before the half hour before the show.
You know what? I think I have it in my bookmarks that I saved it to tell you about, and then I forgot.
Well, there you go. I want to see what Kimmy was talking about here. She said she sent me some sort of message from. I don't know. I have no idea what we're about to get, but I trust Kimmy. So let's see what we got here. Here's the unreversed version in audio boost. This is what the White House shared out.
Okay, they're just messing with people now.
They really are. So this is the unreversed version.
I heard something about announcement.
Exciting announcement tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Who knows? Wow. That's pretty funny. I know his critics are going to be like, why does he have to be like such a child? It's like, you knew what you were getting. I don't want to hear about it. You knew what you were getting. That's why I'm like, when people are like, he said no new wars. I'm like, dude, the dude literally is on mic saying, I'm going to bomb the S out of Iran. Like, you heard no new war.
I don't consider this a new war.
We're not. I don't think we're at war either.
No,
but
no.
But he did promise he was going to bomb the hell out of Iran. So you might not have liked that part of his platform, but he did say that. Look, he also said he was going to go after. He's going to go after. There are things that he said he would do which he hasn't done. You want to give him criticism for Epstein files? I got you. I'm with you. I'm with you. And you want to go after Pam Bondi and all the people, the Democrats he hasn't gone after? I'm with you. But this Iran conflict, this is something he promised he was going to give you. And thank God, he's been effectively kicking butt. Day one, killing Khomeini. And then just dominating since. How much more dominance could you be asking for at this point? But I do want him out of there. I want this to be a happy memory when all is said and done. So, but that's not the full extent of his victories and his successes and things that are coming out this week, which are showing just how terrible the Biden administration was. And as we start working in towards all the different terrible things that were happening that we didn't know about. John Mansell saying, I'm happy to put aside our differences on tariffs, Iran, Massey, etc. You switch to Brave, life is good. There you go. Eventually I come around. Brave is way better. It's way better. This is just way better. It's just much cleaner.
I was liking Opera a lot, but then it started acting weird, so I stopped using it.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I just kept having problems when I was using Brave where it kept, I would go to pull up stuff on certain websites and it wouldn't let me do it. It would say, nope, you got to disable, and I couldn't figure out how to disable what they were telling me to disable.
Yeah, well, I am pleased with Brave. Anyhow, let's start examining all of the hot garbage that's being exposed from the Biden administration. And this is something I did not know before. It makes sense. This comes from RFK Jr. Holy crap, Health Secretary RFK Jr. revealed that the Biden White House ordered HHS to ignore fraud. Just focus on enrolling as many people on welfare as possible. Legal or illegal, doesn't matter. Just get them enrolled. Quote, one of the things I found out from people in my agency was they were ordered by the Biden White House not to do program integrity. In other words, not to enforce against fraud. Let's hear him in his own words here, just because he does a much better RFK Jr. impression than I do.
I'm not a partisan person, but one of the things that I found out from people in my agency was they were ordered by the Biden White House not to do program integrity. In other words, not to enforce against fraud.
That's astonishing.
And they said they were told we want to focus on only enrollment and getting more and more people into the system.
Numbers.
I'm not a partisan person.
This way we can say that we're helping millions of people. Numbers. I don't care if it's real millions of people. I just want you to be willing to lie to me and tell me that you are helping millions of people. So this way I can go out there and say we're helping all these millions of people.
I think it's more that the more people are enrolled, the more chance there is for them to steal money.
You think the fraud is not a bug, it's a feature.
Oh, it's a feature. It is a feature. Well, I mean, where else is Act Blue getting all this money from?
You think it's a way of getting money back to the Democrats themselves?
Yes.
That's your theory.
Well, I mean, we've seen it. We saw it with that guy from, what was that guy? Bankman-Fried, whatever his name was. Sam Bankman-Fried.
Sam Bankman-Fried, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we saw that
money
with SBX.
Yeah.
Right. And that whole crypto thing.
And so clearly they let him go down. That means they had another way to get the money. They didn't need him anymore.
You're not the only one who thinks that. You know who else thinks that? Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh,
that's
cool.
right. Tulsi Gabbard. Well, that's not the way to do. That's not the way I wanted this to look. That's a little better. Okay. U.S. intercepted Ukrainian government messages discussing plot to route money to the Biden re-election.
No, say it ain't so.
U.S. intelligence, and this is not newly intercepted. This is information that our intelligence agencies found out a long time ago and just never bother going after. And you'll see why. U.S. intelligence just intercepted Ukrainian government communications discussing a plot to route hundreds of millions of American tax dollars earmarked for clean energy in the war-torn country and move them to the U.S. to enrich then-President Biden's 2024 re-election campaign and the DNC, according to a declassified intelligence report summarizing the intercepts that was obtained by Just the News. What was that, brother?
Do you think this might be where whatever her name is, Cackling
This
Kamala,
is literally where
got the money?
That's
the
this
$1 trillion,
where
right?
she got the money from.
Yeah, it was like $1 trillion, right, or something like that, or
no,
a billion, or
it was
something.
It was 1 point. She ended up spending like 1.5 billion in like
a month.
90 days or something like that. Yeah. So, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard recently learned of the intercepts and has asked the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, the officials to scour for records to see if the plot actually was carried out and whether a criminal referral should be made to the FBI. Gabbard's team has not found substantive evidence the intercepted allegations were thoroughly investigated during the Biden administration. I wonder why. It's like the crooks never looked at themselves. And the communications are not believed to be tied to Russian disinformation efforts, officials said, meaning what the left is going to come out and say, that never happened. That's just Russia. They didn't like us investing in Ukraine, so they want to pretend that the money we were giving Ukraine was funneled back and was a whole corruption scheme. That's just a disinformation thing. But they say that it's what they look at it doesn't seem like it was really meant to be. Well, it doesn't seem like it was really Russian disinformation. The declassified report is a summary of raw intercepts from U.S. spy agencies in late 2022 concerning the alleged plot, and officials who have reviewed the file said they seem to be a lack of curiosity, a surprising lack of curiosity, to investigate such an explosive allegation of foreign interference in a U.S. election. Quote, the Ukrainian government and unspecified U.S. government personnel through USAID in Kiev, or I think they pronounce it Kiev, reportedly developed a plan that you want to hear more specifics about the plan. You're about to hear it right now. It's a plan that would provide hundreds of millions of U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund an infrastructure project for Ukraine. So we're going to send Ukraine hundreds of millions of dollars for some infrastructure that would be used as a cover to send approximately 90% of the funds allocated to the DNC and to fund Biden's re-election campaign, the declassified summary of intercepts stated. So they basically say, oh, look, we have to send all this money for infrastructure in Ukraine and then basically let them keep 10% and send 90% of it back to the DNC and Biden, literally stealing from the American taxpayer to
10%
fund this campaign.
for the big guy.
Yeah, 10%. And 90% for actually 90% for the big guy in this deal. They were confident, quote, the project would be funded initially, even though at some time in the future the project would be disapproved as unnecessary. So they'll give the initial funding and then say, oh, no, we don't need to do the project. At this time, the money would already be allocated and impossible to return to or used for a different purpose. They'd be like, oh, look, we already spent the money and all the planning and engineering. It's all gone. We can't give the money back anymore. And sorry, it's just evaporated when really 90% of it has gone back to the Biden administration. Can you even imagine it? Well, like, this is literally thievery.
Didn't like $76 billion leave the Energy Department in the last couple months of the Biden administration that they're trying to get Jennifer Graham home?
That's what Lee Zeldin said when he first came in, right?
Yeah.
They were dumping golds of brick off the Titanic, saying we got to send it now. And there was the whole James O'Keefe thing, which was exposing that, right? About how this guy saying, oh yeah, we can't push the money out fast enough. Anyone who's got like green in the name, we gotta send them the money. Because he's like, we know that this ride is coming to an end.
We know Stacey Abrams got $2 billion, and what I
20
understand,
billion,
20 billion, some obscene number, and it said she could have built someone broke it down. I saw, I could look for it, but it was they broke it down the place where she was supposed to do the work, the county that was just for one county, like they could rebuild everyone's house for that money.
Right.
You know, it's like completely rebuild the house, all new appliances, everything in the house, just redo them, and still have 18 billion left over or whatever. It wouldn't, like the mean average house price was like 150,000 or something.
Yeah.
We could just buy them all brand new houses.
They were confident the project would be funded initially, even though at some time in the future, the project would be disproved. By this time, the money's all gone. They're swallowing up our money, and then it's like, sorry, it's gone.
And we just keep getting further and further in debt.
The intercepts mentioned 2 American subcontractors as possible recipients of the money that would eventually be moved to Democratic coffers, officials said. The names are included in still classified raw spy data, but were redacted from the declassified report obtained by Just the News.
I just want to bet one of them was Perkins Coie.
I don't know. They're holding the money. You're saying like an escrow?
They'll take the money because they're a law firm. Then it's like, we're a law firm. You can't look at our books.
Mm-hmm. Quote, the plan include details of how subcontractors would be funded through U.S. companies so that how the funds were spent and allocated would be difficult to track, the declassified summary stated. Additionally, contracts would be executed that would be difficult to verify. In this manner, most of the U.S. funding would be diverted to Joe Biden's election campaign without the ability to track where exactly the funds came from. Now, I want to be clear here, and as clear as Tulsi Gabbard is, that we don't know that this happened. This was a reported plan that was intercepted. That talks of this plan was intercepted. She just doesn't know if it actually came to fruition. We don't know this happened. We know that this was a plan to be set in motion, but we don't have evidence that it has happened. We know about SBX and Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right, but don't they only just need like one furtive act or whatever it was called to actually make the conspiracy?
Have a conspiracy.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need them to actually pull it off. They just have to have the plan and take a step. One step. That's it. Right? Am I wrong? Right. That's right. Right. One step.
Yes. That's from a legal perspective. What you were saying is 100% accurate. From a pragmatic perspective of will you actually see, even if let's imagine tomorrow we replace Pam Bondi with the most aggressive prosecutor ever, right? The most
Joe
aggressive,
Nerman.
talented prosecutor. I didn't say before aggressive and talented. So, but if we replaced her with the most talented and aggressive prosecutor in the world, if all you have is planning stages and some motion and no money actually went out, left our offices, left American government, the chances while it's technically a crime, the chances of getting a conviction from a jury are really low. Because people want to see that there actually was not just, plans and steps, but they want to see that there was some sort of harm. So they're just going to look to excuse the activity. Look, we saw what happened. You probably saw what happened with Nick Sorter. If you have a jury that's not sympathetic, they can ignore the law and just say, no, not guilty. And it's unlikely to find 12 jurors who are going to be sympathetic to the technical act of conspiracy for a conviction if you don't have anything more than a plan and a few steps, like let's say phone calls being made to try and push the plan along, but the plan never really gets off the ground. You're unlikely to get a conviction there. Just being realistic. And that doesn't matter who the attorney is. That's just the way juries operate.
Well, these days, I think it all depends on where the case is tried and the political persuasion of the defendants. Because
100%.
If you're in some districts and you're a Trump supporter, you're screwed.
100%. 100%. But even if first of all, you do in DC, I don't know if you can basically prove Joe Biden stole $1 billion. I don't know that you get anywhere with it. So I'm agreeing with your point. What I'm saying is, even if you find some basis to try in a neutral location, you're not going to get a jury. You're not going to get a neutral jury to go along with it unless they can see that, let's say, some of the monies started being taken from United States. There was a fraud element going on here. So that's just the reality of the situation. I had missed earlier a rant that came in from Duck Fat. That's now thanks to Jin tells you teaching me how to like pull this stuff up and find them quick. I'm able to actually share it with you here. When the data center's usage collapses, Trump will have already forced / convinced the big corps to fortify and rebuild our volatile power grid. Suddenly, nuclear power is okay. Nuclear power is always okay. Nuclear power is something that we should be so much thoroughly invested in that it's ridiculous. It is such a great option. I'm much happier with nuclear power than I am with nuclear weapons. To me, it's much. I mean, I'm mindful of the fact that nuclear weapons are a necessity for as a deterrent, but I get that. But nuclear power, I'm a huge fan. Huge fan. Anyway. I think the rest of this article, which goes on for a while, it really is talking about just politics of situation as far as what's going on with Zelensky.
I would like to have them look into
really
what else they did. Because if this is the plan someone came up with there, they were doing other stuff too.
Well, we for all we know the plan actually worked.
Right. Oh yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They might have done it. You're right. That might have been where Kamala got the money. That could have been.
It could be. It could be. So. That's another way that the Biden administration and their corruption of the Biden administration has been exposed. But that's not all. We have more, courtesy of my good friend Ron Coleman, who put together a brilliant thread talking about the lawfare of the Biden DOJ and just how amazingly twisted and perverted their sense of justice actually was. We saw the 4 different cases brought in criminal court against Donald Trump. And, we thought about that lawfare. But this was happening up and down, left and right by this very poisonous DOJ. And, this is why, by the way, it gets me so angry when I hear these people complaining about how, the betrayal of Trump. I'm like, dude, you're so, it's like, how do you forget everything that was so twisted and corrupt? You're not getting everything you want. I get it. It's frustrating. Certain things you really want. Certain things you're not happy with. Are you going to pretend that what do you have, the memory of a goldfish? Like you don't recall like all the lawfare we were facing? You don't recall all the millions of people streaming across the border? Like what are you pretending that this is, utter betrayal. He's done nothing, accomplished nothing. You don't recall the fentanyl crisis we were dealing with? How are you sitting there so stupidly pretending that life was much better under Biden? It's like it's like so self-involved. It gets me angry. And that's why I'm like, no, we're going to call attention to the how much better things are now and how terrible things were under the Biden administration. And this thread over here from Ron Coleman does a great job in helping lay that out. Rumblings from the 7th Circuit over a tense oral argument in USA versus Rishi Shah, which should be of concern to anyone paying attention to Democrat lawfare. This is in the United States Court of Appeals to the 7th Circuit on appeal from the United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. The circuit judges are bewildered. Let me just make sure I'm doing this in order because I don't want to. Okay. Circuit judges are bewildered at prosecutors scripting witness testimony after their witnesses were given immunity, completely changing their testimony. Judge Thomas Kirsch, I've actually never heard of anything like this, that the way that the Biden DOJ was acting with respect to their prosecution. The panel's critiques continue, however, as Circuit Judge Thomas Kirsch questioned the trial court's discretion in allowing the government to present the jury with grand jury statements by co-conspirators who Shah and Agrawal argue were obtained only under the offer of a favorable plea deals for immunity. I've actually never heard of anything like this, Judge Kirsch said. In 2019, the DOJ brought criminal charges against Outcome Health founder Rishi Shah after Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's venture capital firm sued the company to retrade terms of their investment. This followed a Wall Street Journal article highlighting that a sales executive had been inflating numbers at Outcome, then one of Chicago's most prominent startups. The ongoing fight led to the founders getting jail time amidst a range of legal controversy. The government seized the founders' assets illegally, so they couldn't afford their lawyers. Then, for the sake of putting two self-made entrepreneurs in jail, they offered immunity to the actual fraudsters, scripted their witness testimony, and pinned the blame on the founders. The problems here are extraordinary. Judge Easterbrook pressed the DOJ attorney on why the government admitted asset over restraints shouldn't require reversal, meaning that they seized assets. The government came, seized assets they had no legal right to seize, and basically left the defendants with no opportunity to even get proper counsel. So now they're being asked, why doesn't that mandate, since you overseas things you weren't supposed to be seizing, that should mandate that that's a reversal? As it says, pressed by U.S. Circuit Judge Frank Easterbrook to defend the district court's finding that careful reading would have shown Shah and Agarwal that the government intended to seek only Outcome's 2016 bank loans and a 2017 capital raise for forfeiture. U.S. DOJ Attorney William Glazer points to the indictment of the government filed in 2019. The charging documents sought to restrain only certain assets held by two of Shah and Agarwal's business entities, so they couldn't possibly have thought that the government was trying to restrain all of their assets, the prosecutor argued. Even if the appellate panel considers the issue properly preserved through the former Outcome executive's pretrial bid to gain access to about $10 million in civil settlement money for counsel retention purposes, they still cannot overcome the trial court's post-trial determination that the government had unintentionally over-restrained their funds, Glazer argued. Quote, "We did make a mistake. We shouldn't have restrained some of those untraceable assets," the prosecutor told the panel. But the district court found that the government not only didn't intentionally do it, but actually didn't know about the over-restraint. Unbelievable. The original prosecutor on this case, after being forced by the judge to take the stand, testified he, quote, "knew that I didn't know the law well enough on forfeiture. I wasn't really sure what I was doing there. So I just seized all this stuff, irrespective of whether or not it was illegal for me to seize it." The DOJ seized millions anyway. DOJ restrained funds it couldn't trace to any fraud. So they basically saw assets that they didn't think they had no reason to think was fraudulent. They're like, oh, we're taking that money too. Imagine basically you have a business, okay? A side business. Let's just to simplify this for laypersons. You have a side business which just starts doing well, right? The government comes along and they basically say, we think that this is a whole fraudulent thing going on here. So we're going to look at the money in that account and we're going to look at everything you're holding on the stock market and everything that you have in your primary business. And we're going to seize all that money also. Then we're going to go into your personal bank account. We'll seize that money too. It's like basically leaving you broke. All your assets frozen, restrained. Can't get them out of the bank.
It's the same. I think it's no different than what they do when people are traveling through the airports and they go, hey, you got $6,000 in cash on you. Why do you got this cash on you? And they go, oh, we sense drugs on it because 80% of all dollar bills have drug residue on them because whatever. Right. It is what it is. But, they do. Yeah, I think civil assets forfeiture is theft, and that's basically what they did here.
But they didn't even have money the founders didn't even have money to hire lawyers because all their money is
civil assets forfeiture just as bad too, Joe, because they take the money and then you got to hire a lawyer, and if it's like $6-10 grand, it's like, well, the lawyer's going to cost you $20 to get the $6 grand back, so the government just takes it and goes,
It's theft.
It's theft.
The government later admitted it broke the law, but by then Shah had already gone to trial without the lawyers he wanted. Judge Michael Scudder put it plainly to the prosecution. The government made the error, then placed the burden on Shah to figure out the consequences and sort it all out. How is that fair or proper outcome here? Good question. Quote, we did make a mistake. We shouldn't have restrained some of those untraceable assets, prosecutor told the panel, but the district court found that we didn't do it on purpose. We didn't actually know about the overrestraint.
They slipped and fell. and the money just fell out of the bank account.
Since we didn't know about it, so it's not our fault. Circuit Judge Michael Scudder credited the government for taking responsibility for the overrestraint and said the issue stemmed from a left-hand, right-hand problem, as best he could tell. The judge now appears sold on its assertion that the executive's conviction should stand, saying the government seemed to be placing the onus on Shah and Agrawal to figure out the consequences. And how is that fair or proper outcome here, Judge Scudder asked the government's attorney. It gets worse. The government's key witnesses were cooperators, people who actually committed the fraud. So that's who they got to turn on them. They received immunity or favorable plea deals. The prosecutors scripted their grand jury testimony for them, told them what to say. Oh, that's not the insane part. No, we're not there yet. Here we go. Here's the insane part. When those witnesses deviated at trial, so in other words, first what happens is, so they come along to you and they say, you know, Jim, we think the business you got here going on, we've been working with Tom, you've been working with Sin and
Nick.
Joe, with Sin and some random person named Nick. We think there's fraud going on here. So now, what they do is they basically say, oh, okay, we're going to seize all your money, Jim. You have no money now, Jim. And we're going to have Sin and Nick, who are involved, we think are involved in this conspiracy with you, testify against you. We're going to give them plea deals, and you can't even afford an attorney. But then so what are the stages of that we're going to go through here? Well, first we got to get a grand jury to indict Jim. So we say, okay, I'm going to go get a grand jury to indict you. But my witnesses, Sin and Nick, are kind of stupid. And what they're saying isn't exactly what I want them to say. So I basically say, okay, this is what you're going to tell the grand jury, and have them basically memorize it, saying, here's your testimony that you're going to say if you want our plea deal to work out. So they sit there, memorize it, and they basically, like, you know, they're a puppet for the DOJ, because now they have to say these words in order to stick with the plea deal.
Isn't there a term for that, like suborning perjury?
So they give them, I'm not saying the suborning perjury, maybe they was truthful, I don't know, but so now you have these guys you have Sin and Nick go in there, and they testify at the grand jury. Okay? And they basically give their testimony. So now we get an indictment against you, Jim. You get charged, all your money's been seized. You can't now hire the lawyer you want. You have to hire someone who's working for $30 an hour. And, you know, it's like, wow, it's my first big break. I never got someone who hired me to be their lawyer before. And you go, and now during the course of the trial, they bring Sin back up there on the stand to testify against you. But the problem is that Sin doesn't remember his testimony that he gave back at the grand jury months ago. And he's saying different things, conflicting with what he said at the grand jury. So the attorneys, the DOJ gets up there, and they're like, no. Don't you mean this? Let me read to you from your testimony at the grand jury. It's like, yes, that's it. That's what I meant is what happened here. So they gave him the words to say at the grand jury proceeding, and then when that guy couldn't even remember them at the trial, they say, oh, okay, we're going to just tell you what it is. And the judge is like, oh, that's totally fine for the DOJ here to read the testimony to them, which never should happen in a million years. But when those witnesses deviated trial after being confronted with irrefutable documentary evidence, the government read back the scripted grand jury testimony instead. Shah's appellate counsel told the panel, quote, we agree with Judge Kirsch. We have never seen anything like this. Allowing this would mean the government gets a wholesale ability to draft grand jury statements and introduce them later at trial. That's not justice. That's lawfare. Amen. The NACDL filed an amicus brief calling this what it is: 3 constitutional crises. First, you have the seizure of assets violated the Sixth Amendment right to counsel choice. When they stole his money, now he can't get an attorney that he wants to get, so you have a right to counsel on the Sixth Amendment. Second, the scripted grand jury testimony violated confrontation rights, because now you're not confronting Sin and Nick, because they're just saying what the DOJ told them to say. So you have a right on the Constitution to confront your accuser. It's really the DOJ who's your accuser. They're the ones who are giving them the words to say. And 3, the fraud theory itself was legally defective. On that third point, the government's theory was that the outcome oversold and underdelivered. So what was the fraud that outcome purportedly it was engaged in? Well, the government's theory was the outcome oversold and underdelivered, even though defense lawyers proved Shah was told by the very same government cooperators, that's Nick and Sin in this story, that the company had provided credits to advertisers in each and every instance of delivery shortfall. So, in plain English, they tried to turn a contract dispute into a $1 billion federal fraud case. SCOTUS has repeatedly rejected exactly this kind of prosecutorial overreach. C. Simonelli, C. Kelly, C. McNally. Let me explain to you what he's saying here, okay? Now, let's come back to the story here where you were engaged in some sort of fraud involving Sin and Nick, okay? So the fraud, let's say, is that you said you were selling them refrigerators, right? And instead of selling them like, actual, stand-up refrigerators,
I was selling them old-fashioned ice boxes that they had to put ice in.
Yeah, you delivered these old-fashioned ice boxes, okay? Yeah, that they need ice. It's basically a big giant cube that you put ice in, right? So, and now, but what they admitted was that when they got product that was like, this is the wrong product or wasn't as good as you promised it was going to be, they basically said, oh, okay, we'll give you credit for that. We'll give you money back on that. It's a contract thing. It's a breach of contract thing. Like you promised you were going to deliver X, you delivered Y or something less than what X is. So they said, oh, okay, well, let's try to fix that. We're delivering lots of things, delivering, millions of products a day out. So we'll fix for you. That's a contract issue. That's not fraud. In fact, I'll go one further with you. This is something that few non-attorneys, few non-litigators would actually really know. This is something that litigators have drilled into, as those of us involved in commercial litigation. In many jurisdictions, they don't even allow you to allege both fraud and breach of contract. If you want to sue someone for a problem in a negotiation, in a deal that you had consummated with someone, in many jurisdictions, you have to pick your poison between fraud or breach of contract because they're very, very similar to each other. But fraud basically means your intention from the get-go was to promise me something you had no intention of giving me, as opposed to, so you were lying to dupe me into this deal in the first place. Breach of contract means we came to an agreement, and then after we came to this agreement, you failed to live up to your end of the agreement. Fraud is basically you were tricking me to get my signature on this agreement. You see the difference there?
Yep.
Fraud often will not have a contract at all. Fraud will just be like, you got me to come somewhere and I didn't, and under the promise you were going to pay me money. You don't even need to have money. You don't need to have a contract in order to have fraud. Breach of contract obviously always needs a contract, although it doesn't always need to be a written contract. There could be an oral contract with breach of contract. But the point that I'm getting at is that because of this, it's very easy when you're going after criminal fraud to take a breach of contract case and say all of a sudden now, well, since you didn't live up to the contract, now we're going to throw you in jail for fraud is retarded. SCOTUS has repeatedly rejected the notion of taking a breach of contract and turning that into now you're going to jail for fraud. The NACL amicus brief put it bluntly: if allowed to stand, this case sets a dangerous precedent that can convert any breach of contract into a potential federal crime. Every startup founder, every entrepreneur should be paying attention, because what happens is, now imagine this, okay? You're a developer, you're developing software, okay? Someone says, hey, I'm going to give you $5 million for you to develop a game for me that looks like a souped up version of Mario Brothers with a different thing, like whatever. I'm gonna give you millions of dollars. You try to do it and you fail. You suck, right? All of a sudden now, so you want to come after me and say we're gonna throw you in jail for fraud? You defrauded $5 million, or is it breach of contract? Is that a crime? Are you potentially going to jail for that or not? And look, I guess in certain circumstances, if the person had no capacity, ability, or ever thought of working on it, you could see that as being a fraud. But in most cases, it's like, look, I tried doing it, the program wasn't working, and then this thing fell apart, and this thing fell apart, and I had all these different problems, so I didn't end up delivering what I promised I was going to deliver. So, maybe you're entitled to restitution, get your money back, but also I'm going to go to jail now? That sounds insane.
Don't most contracts have like provisions in the contract saying like if somebody fails to do this is going to be a penalty, this will be the penalty? Like, don't they usually have laid out what the penalties are and stuff like that in contracts?
Often, yeah. Depending on the nature of the contract. There's a lot. It really depends on what type of contract you're talking about, but that's not an uncommon thing at all. Usually, in many contracts, you might have that more payments be made at certain stages of development in a project. When you're talking about a contract to develop a certain type of product, you'll often have baked in there that at different stages there'll be a new infusion of additional monies, or there'll be statements about what happens if there's a need for additional funding. This is a common thing, but if none of those are contemplating anyone going to jail, right? When you sign a contract with someone, you're not thinking the government's going to come and throw one of us in jail. No one's thinking that. So, yeah, that's essentially the DOJ admitted we did make a mistake. We shouldn't have restrained some of those untraceable assets.
There is one contract though that you have to always be worried about having the government come to throw you in jail.
What's that?
Contract murder.
That's true. That is true. When mistakes have consequences, when the government makes a mistake that deprives you of your constitutional right to counsel choice, that's a structural error. Automatic reversal. My friends, the right to choose your own lawyer isn't some technicality. It is fundamental. And you should be choosing Ron Coleman religiously, by the way, when you need counsel, when you need litigation counsel. As SCOTUS said in Gonzalez Lopez, the Constitution commands that the accused be defended by the counsel he believes to be best, not whoever is left after the government freezes your money. The government seized so much of Shah's money that he couldn't afford the lawyers he'd hired. 4 years later, Shah was convicted. Only after trial, once the government was caught, did he get some of his money back. Shah then rehired his original lawyers. Shah's appeal is now pending in the Seventh Circuit. He could still face jail time. But as those remarks at oral argument already show, the panel is skeptical of what the government did here. This is a cautionary tale. This could happen to you. I like how we found that little emoji. The DOJ says Shah should have figured out earlier that his assets were improperly restrained. Think about that. Prosecutor makes an illegal seizure, admits it, then blames the defendant for not catching his mistake sooner. That's not the rule of law. That's the rule of we do what we want. The circuit hasn't ruled yet, but whatever happens, this case exposes something rotten in federal criminal prosecution. Prosecutors who don't know forfeiture law, witnesses whose testimony is drafted by the DOJ, billions in fraud charges built on simple contract disputes. Judge Scudder credited the DOJ for taking responsibility, saying, oh, whoops, that's their responsibility. When they're taking responsibility, it's like, hey, you weren't allowed to seize all that money. They're like, whoops. What do you mean, whoops? The guy's in jail because he took his money. He couldn't hire a good lawyer. Whoops. Judge Scudder credited the DOJ for taking responsibility for the over-restraint. Actually, taking responsibility means facing consequences. If illegally seizing millions in assets and so a defendant must go to trial without his chosen counsel, it isn't enough for reversal. What is? Sixth Amendment exists for moments like this. When the full weight of the federal government comes down on you, you have the right to defend yourself with the lawyer you choose, not the lawyer you can afford after the feds take your money. That's the principle at stake here. And here's where it gets really interesting. Even after the appeal, there's still the matter of restitution. The government still wants Shah's co-defendants to pay back massive amounts to institutional investors like Pritzker Group Venture Capital. Yeah, Pritzker.
This might have all been done as a political favor for JB Fat Slob Prickster. Especially when you think about it, the way it works, people, and this is a sad thing, politicos, the state politicos are who controls who gets these cushy jobs as U.S. attorney. That's why the Trump didn't want to take any of the scum. I should call them scum. I'll call them fucking scum. Who cares? That are in these states like Virginia, Delaware, Wisconsin, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California. He wanted his people. D.C. wanted his people.
Yes.
To be U.S. attorneys. That's why they couldn't get through, because they weren't backed by people like Fat Slob Prickster and Dickie Durbin.
There you go. Oh, yes. Governor J.B. Pritzker's Family Investment Fund was an investor in Outcome Health. They're the ones who turned against him. They also received controlling, I don't know if they turned against him. They also received a controlling equity stake worth hundreds of millions in the 2018 civil settlement. The company went on to sell for billions in 2025. Wow. Wow. Now the Pritzkers stand to bank potentially hundreds of millions more in criminal restitution, double recovery funded by prosecution king they helped push forward. For what it's worth, the defendants just filed a motion to restitution on proceeds. And SCOTUS's recent Ellingberg decision makes clear that restitution is criminal punishment, which requires jury findings. The outcome held jury findings made no findings on victim losses, none. Shaw's attorney, forfeiture expert Richard Finneran, said Ellingberg means that if the government thought it was entitled to a $400 million restitution order, it had to prove it to the jury and obtain a verdict beyond a reasonable doubt. The government did neither here. So here's the scorecard. Feds illegally seized millions, forced the defendants to trial without their chosen counsel, drafted witness testimony in a fraud case premised on contract disputes, and now politically powerful billionaire investors who already settled, these wealthy fat cats, and I mean fat cats in every way you can possibly use that term, because yes, I do think that he's a cat boy in disguise.
I mean, could that settlement be in question now because they were under pressure to settle, forced to settle because of the actions of the government and because
it's very hard to get out of the settlement agreement that you agreed to.
All right.
Very, very hard. Look what happened with Michael Finn when he settled and agreed to his thing, trying to get out of it.
He just got 1.2 million from the government yesterday.
Very tricky. So here's the scorecard. Feds illegally seized millions, forced the defendants to trial without their chosen counsel, drafted witness testimony in a fraud case premised on contract disputes, and now politically powerful fat cats, billionaire fat cats, investors who already settled are seeking hundreds of millions more. Sean Agrawal are out on bail pending appeal. They haven't served any time yet. The Seventh Circuit's decision will matter for them, obviously, but also for every defendant who has assets seized before trial, and for every citizen who believes the Constitution means what it says. Very well done, Ron. Very well done indeed. So, more of Biden DOJ shenanigans exposed. Is anyone surprised? Is anyone surprised? I don't think so. I do not think so. Okay. Joe, when you get a chance, can you explain the Jewish perspective of Moses striking the rock a second time? Happy Bat Mitzvah and Passover next week. I didn't remember that I had ever told that. But if you're okay, when you ask me the Jewish perspective, I need to.
I mean, I saw the movie when it came down with the 15, 15 commandments, and then dropped one of them on it broke and said the 10 commandments.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I can do that. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe. I still don't know what the word YLVIS means.
Maybe Elvis? Maybe Elvis.
He always spells it with a Y. I don't know why.
Elvis?
Yeah.
Elvis?
Replace Pam Bondi with Ashley Merchant. I actually like this idea. I like this idea in the sense that the one thing we know about Ashley Merchant is that she is a pit bull. She will not slow down. When I've seen her argue, I haven't felt like she was the most fluid attorney on her feet. I've seen other people more skilled. Trump's counsel in that case. What was his name? That old guy there in that case.
I had a feeling, and I'm not trying to disparage her or anything, but I had a feeling that somebody was helping her.
No, but
her stuff. You know what I mean? Like
that's possible. That's what I'm saying. Is as far as her litigation skills, I think she's okay. I don't want to disparage her. I think she's okay. I wouldn't call her the most talented attorney as far as being able to present a legal argument. She's okay. She's adequate, and she has other skills that far outshine my own. Like she's a much better attorney than I am with respect to her resolve and determination that she will not rest, and like she basically is is driven in a way I aspire to be. I find inspirational. So, and perhaps the attorney general, that's the most important thing, because Pam Bondi is not trying cases. So an attorney general who's driven in a certain sense is perhaps one of the key feature we seem to be lacking in Pam Bondi, right? So in that sense, yeah, I don't know why it is I'm drawing a blank. Let me see. Maybe the chat has weighed in here. You guys weigh in on that guy's name?
Someone said Paul Clement, but I didn't think
No,
Clement.
no.
Paul Clement, that's he's the Supreme Court guy that did Bruin and this other case. He did the ballot case that just went through the absentee ballot or not,
Yeah,
late
Paul
driving
Clement
ballot
is
stuff.
Paul Clement is Supreme Court guy. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on him. If someone says the name, it'll jostle my memory. But yeah, but I think that perhaps when you're looking for a good attorney general, so that litigator there, he was very effective in just he was able to present his arguments in a manner that was cogent and aggressive while being respectful. And he seemed very seasoned as far as standing up there at the podium and making his point crystal clear in ways that far outshine most people in my profession. So he was very impressive. So that's a different skill set. You know, we're talking different skill sets. As far as an attorney general, I don't know you need him to be so talented as a litigator. You need someone who's going to just be driven. But you want someone who's driven, who's also a really good quarterback, who can delegate responsibility very effectively and then stay on top to make sure things are getting done. So yeah, that's what I maybe she would be good as an AJ. Never
Steve Sadow.
That's it, Steve Sadow. Yeah, thank you, Steve Sadow. Yeah, Steve was great. He was really impressive. Never met a better you. I've never met a better me either. I've never met a better me either. Someone actually put on X today, responding to a question: "Who is your favorite Jew?" And the interesting thing is, I don't know who the guy is who was asking the question, but he seemed to be a relatively large account who has Pharaoh as his picture there. And someone there wrote the following pro that I recently jumped in the top spot ahead of God Sod because God is not a Beatles fan than I am. So there you go.
Wow, I thought Gad Sad, God Sod, Gad Sad. I thought he was Lebanese or something.
He's Jewish.
Is he? Okay.
God Sod is Jewish.
I mean, I guess he could be Lebanese and Jewish. I don't know if that was probably rude of me to say that. But for some reason I thought he.
I feel like I should get to, and that makes me feel like I should answer John. I should do a service for John Mansell here. Maybe we'll pause for a moment in tonight's show and I'll break it down for you. K Bean, I'm gonna recognize this. Thank you so much. Your generous support of tonight's work. I DM'd the video yesterday. I don't remember seeing a DM from you. I don't recall that.
I think he's talking to me. He DM'd me a video of. I think he's talking about a Hassan Piker video talking about some stuff.
Oh, he did send it to me.
Did he? Okay.
What does the fox say, Elvis? What does the fox say?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I don't know why. I happen to like the song. I don't know why. It's kind of a silly song, but I do kind of like it. All right. Fine. So I'm going to pause in this show. You want to know the Jewish perspective on Moses and striking the rock. So what the heck, right? This is a pause from our political commentary to give you a little Torah knowledge as far as stories from the Torah that you've probably heard something about, but still got it a little bit wrong, or from a Torah perspective. You got it. You probably don't have it correct. I'm going to tell you the parts that are my own personal perspective based on various rabbinic authorities that I've looked at and where they fit in. The story of Moses and the rock, okay? the rock is the Moses hits a rock at a certain time, and he ends up being punished by God for hitting the rock, where God basically says, "You're going to die without going into the land of Canaan," which is what his dream was to go there, and he ends up not going into the land of Canaan. So, what is the story with the rock? Well, you know how the Jews have been wandering in the desert for 40 years. When they come out of Egypt, so at that time, Moses is 80. His sister is 86, and his brother Aaron, his sister Miriam is 86, and his brother Aaron was 83. They all die 40 years later. They die within 1 year of each other. Now, they spend the 40 years in the desert, and near the end of the time there, a few months before they're about to go into the land of Canaan. So when they first got into the desert, one of the things you need when you're in the desert is water. And you're talking about millions of people here. There's 600,000 male Jews, but if you do estimates, it's like 3 million people, 3 million Jews likely, or at least as a bare minimum, we'll call it well over. It's at least 1.2, 1.5 million. But then they say that following along with the Jews was another group of people who were so inspired by the events of Egypt that they likely numbered in the millions in a separate camp that was like following along behind them. So they're traveling in the desert, and God is providing them with shelter, clouds, along with manna. This is the invention of manna coming at this period of time, but they still need water. So when they needed water, so first they come to a spring where the water was very bitter, and then later on, when they're traveling through the desert, and God's telling them, "You go here, go there," traveling from one place to another. I think they had 49 stops along the way. They actually had a well, but it wasn't like a well the way you picture you'll see in some movie. And I was watching a movie about Moses that I saw like a little bit of clips of something that's on Hulu now, which was making my stomach turn. But though it's actually referred to as Miriam's well, that which they didn't know it was Miriam, but they didn't learn it was because of that was in Miriam's honor that God gave them the well, in that the well stopped, dried up when she dies. But the way it started was God told Moses, "Go with Aaron, take your staff with you," and this is at the start of the 40 years, "and hit the rock, and he goes and he does that, and from the rock springs forward water." But this is not water the way you picture it, where it's just sort of like, a spigot of water. This is the quantity of water that was coming out. It was literally like tributaries of water that's how much water was coming from. And every time this rock is providing them water along the way. I don't know if it's not, the Torah is not clear whether it's, that they took this rock with them or how this is working when they're going from one travel to another. That's not reflected anywhere in Torah. But what we do know is that when Miriam dies, when they're 40 years in the desert, or 39 years in the desert, so near the end of their travels in the desert, it dies and the water dries up. And then they come, and the people are complaining that they need water. They come to Moses, and Moses the whole time is like, "What are you coming to me? I'm not the one who we're all just following God's orders. I'm standing in front, but why are you coming to me for this?" And he goes and asks God to get water. So God says to him again, "Take the staff with you and go and talk to the rock." And
Talk to the rock?
yes, talk to the rock.
Is that where the saying "you got rocks in your head" comes from?
Go talk to the rock. Yeah. If you look at it, he basically tells him, take the stick with you and go to the rock, and this is going to be an inspirational moment.
The first game of stickball.
This is going to be an inspirational moment for the Jews. Anyway, so apparently Moses tries this, and it's not coming forward. There's different authorities as to whether he tried talking to the rock or not, and basically the upshot is that he ends up hitting the rock probably twice. And as
Marion Barry had the same problem. He hit the rock twice and they locked him up for it.
Well, I don't know what that means. It's a reference.
Marion Barry was this crack smoking mayor of DC. Never mind. It was a joke. It was a bad joke.
So when it hit the rock the second time, if the water flows forward for the way it did when Miriam was alive.
Oh, cool.
And God basically says to both Moses and Aaron, because he said, you and Aaron go with your staff, says to both of them, you're going to have to answer that you failed to inspire the Jews properly, in that you hit the rock. And because of that, you're going to die in the desert, and you're not going into the land of Canaan. So a lot of authorities Jewish authorities are very, there's a dispute amongst them. What exactly went wrong here? Why is he being punished? And how are they failing to bring honor to God and recognition of God by hitting a rock? I mean, this is a pretty miraculous thing. And most authorities are based, what I've seen as far as Jewish authorities saying that the lack of inspiration that's coming here from hitting the rock is, if you're looking at something that's miraculous, there's a different levels of inspiration as to something that's miraculous. If I do something, if a prophet does something which defies the laws of nature, so by making water come out of a rock by hitting it with a stick, that's really, really impressive. But even more impressive than that is that someone who's a skeptic could look at him hitting the rock and say, okay, maybe he knew the right spot on this particular rock. Maybe he's an expert geologist, knew the right spot on this rock to bring forward water out of it. And that's what he did here. And that's science, that he basically ended up just hitting it, the right spot. And when he hit the right spot, all this water came gushing out of it. So because, as opposed to if he just walks up and actually would have spoken properly with the rock, that this would have actually been, there's no way you can try and use science to explain that, and it would have been a far more open and miraculous thing for the Jews to behold. And the objective, according to the rabbinic sage Rashi, is that they would have had the Jews would have been very inspired about themselves, and they would have drawn what we call an a fortiori argument against themselves to be inspirational. What is that argument? A logical basis to inspire themselves. What does that even mean? Well, they would say to themselves, look at this rock. It's not dependent on God. It doesn't have any needs. It doesn't, there's different ways of looking at it, this a fortiori experiment. You can look at it one of two ways. One is that it's not dependent on God, and yet when it gets commanded by an agent of God to give forth water, it just does what's being asked of it. We who are dependent on God, all the more so that we give so much more beneficence from God, all the more so if when he asks us to do something that we should follow it. The rock isn't looking for anything from God. It's just existing and just laying on the ground. We have continual needs that God's serving. And why is it that we need to be hit? A rock will act without being hit, but we won't act unless we get a metaphorical hit, a plague, a punishment, life challenges. That's the only thing that inspires us, but that we can't just go forward. And that the idea is that the Jews, having seen a miracle of that nature, of a rock just spewing forward by listening to a commandment being issued by Moses, that we, hearing commandments from Moses, should similarly, all the more so, be that much more responsive in following his commandments. The other a fortiori argument is that that a rock can't speak, think, or hear, and it's willing to listen to Moses. We who do have those capacities, all the more so we should be listening to Moses. But the point that I'm getting at here is that that's what God was hoping would happen, and that Moses deprived the Jews of having that logical argument, inspirational, thrust upon them.
So God wanted the people to take Moses' words to be as God's words. And so when he spoke to the rock, they would realize that Moses spoke to this rock.
That a rock recognizes
So we need to recognize voice. And because he didn't do what God wanted him to do, he was being punished.
Yes. If a rock can understand this is God's words and follow through on it, what the heck is wrong with you? When you have, either you are so much more obviously evolved and developed than a rock, or that you have so much more needs than a rock. But if a rock will follow God's words coming from Moses, why the heck can't you? So
that is where the term "you got rocks in your heads" came from. What do you got, rocks in your head? Can't understand.
I'm really positive that's not true.
Okay.
But the point that I'm getting at here is this: that's all of this is consistent. Everything I've given you so far is consistent with Torah thought as far as this whole explanation here. I myself had questions that I was very bothered, and I'll share with you something that I devised on my own. Okay, this is I came up with this on my own, and this is because I spent a lot of time when I'm studying Torah just trying to understand what I'm seeing, what I'm reading. And we pray for water twice a year. At the end of the holiday of Passover, we pray for water, and at the end of the holiday of Sukkot, Tabernacles, we will pray for water. And there's a special prayer that we say. It's a slightly different prayer, but in these prayers, we invoke the merit that of our forebears and that came before us, of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and it's the very poetic liturgy which we say over. And one of the merits that we mention is Moses. But we don't just mention their merits and their greatness and say, in their merit, you should help give us appropriate rains. The reason that we make such a big deal about water today in 21st century life, it's very difficult to appreciate the significance of water. But for the millennia after millennia, when man was walking the earth, water was a persistent need. It's only within the last 200 years, which is a blip in the existence of man. It's only the last 200 years that we're, and only in certain countries that to us, I go into any place I want. I can just turn on a faucet and get water. But throughout the existence of humanity, finding water was a massive deal. It's literally life or death. And
that's why all throughout history, for like millennia, most 90% of all the people lived close to water.
100%. Yes. Yeah. So the needs of having effective water, of having a healthy water supply is massive. So these Jewish prayers, which go back thousands of years now. So when they crafted it, and they're saying, in the merit of these forebears of ours, please give us the water's the appropriate rains that we need now for the winter season, different rains for the spring and summer season, in order so that our crops will grow. Because it's not just rains for drinking, but rains for your crops to grow. Because your crops don't grow, again, you die. So success was always related to healthy rains, not rains that are too powerful and are going to just drown all your crops, and not too little. You need to have the right, healthy amounts of rains in the right seasons and the right times. So that was a fundamental, essential part of Jewish prayer. But what was astonishing to me is when our sages were composing these, it's like a chapter for Abraham. It's like a paragraph for Abraham, a paragraph for Isaac, paragraph for Jacob. When he gets to, and it'll reference how they each of them tie in their life story to water, one way or another, and analogize them. When it comes to the life story of Moses, and they reference Moses, there's a lot of different life stories, references for Moses that relate to water. He was put in a basket as an infant in the water. He split the waters of the Red Sea. But what do we reference with respect to him? We reference the guy who hit the rock and in his merit, he hit the rock and water came out of it. In his merit, give us water. And to me, this was a just perplexing thing. Of all the things of Moses, the patriarchs, it's kind of difficult to sort of tie together how they're related to water. But Moses is really easy. And you pick this story, the one thing that was his sin, like you could, so to speak, the Christians would say his cross to bear, that's what you're going to say now is the basis for it. Doesn't seem to make any sense unless you look at Moses. And this is an answer I came up with, and it's based on certain rabbinic authorities. But unless you look at it this way, that Moses, and this is my own perspective that I've told people, and they're like, wow, that's a really cool perspective. And when Moses saw what was happening here, he saw that this I keep struggling with that word, a fortiori argument would be hanging over the head of the Jews forever. that he foresaw this. He's like, he saw what God wanted him to do. He saw God wants me to talk to the rock. And if I talk to the rock and water comes out of it, what a terrible, awful weight that is over the heads of Jewry for all time. Because any Jew 1,000 years from now, when it, like, if he sins, basically God can look at him and say, why are you not following what Moses told you to do, when even a rock would listen to what Moses told him to do? And he felt like that was a very oppressive weight to be hanging over Jews for all time. So in other words, he sacrificed himself, so to speak, in saying, I know that God's not going to be happy with me for this, but if I hit the rock, instead of talking to the rock, at least I'm protecting Jews, that they're not going to have this argument hanging over their heads. So in that sense, he was actually serving as a shield for us, in that we don't have to have that argument hanging over us as like, oh my God, you really suck, you're worse than a rock. It's like, no, we're not worse than a rock. And that's why when we pray to God for water, again, this part is my own explanation, but I've spoken to some real rabbinical scholars, and they all seem to think that it's very logical. That's why when we pray for water and these critical rains that we need to have, that we invoke Moses, and we actually have that Moses enables to turn this argument almost 180 degrees on its head, in the sense that we can say, look at Moses, who was willing to sacrifice himself by hitting the rock, and he knew he was going to get punished for you from it. But he had so much love for Jews that he said, even though I'm not going to be able to I'm going to get punished one way or another, I'm not going to be able to go into Canaan, that I'm still willing to take that sacrifice in order to protect them from having that argument hang over their heads, because my love for Jewish nation. So we say, if Moses is willing to sacrifice himself for us at times that we're not such great Jews, right? If we were actually really good, we don't need his protection. It's only for the Jews who are not really acting so well who need that protection. So in that sense, if he's willing to sacrifice himself for that, and we're not even his children, but God looks at us as his children. So all the more so, if he's willing to sacrifice himself, that the one who hit the rock to bring out water, all the more so, you, God, should basically, try and look to protect us as well. So he ends up becoming that action, which is looked at as his greatest sin. And he does suffer the punishment of never going to Canaan because of it. That actually was him self-sacrificing to protect Jews who might stray from the past in the future from facing a harsher level of God's wrath for doing so. That's your explanation. I gave you what understood Jewish thought was, and I added on a wrinkle at the end there as to what my own addition was.
2 questions.
Go for it.
Okay. You keep saying Canaan. Is it what I call Canaan?
Israel. You call Canaan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to know if I was confused.
There's two A in English. There's 2 A's, Canaan. So you call Canaan. I mean, I don't. Yeah. In Hebrew,
I don't know why. I just always thought it was Canaan.
And you've probably heard other people say it that way, because in English, I don't know how it's properly pronounced. In Hebrew, the word is Canaan. And that land of Canaan is Israel today. I mean, that's Israel proper. But at that point, the Jews had not gone into Israel yet. They never taken, the patriarchs had lived there during their lifetimes, but it wasn't considered Israel until the Jews actually would conquer it right after Moses died. Joshua took over, and that's when God led them towards conquering the nations at that point in time, which is 3,300 and that's actually 3,297 years ago or so. So there you go. Off the top of my head. That was your long. That was
the other question was about the manna.
About the manna.
Heaven. I mean, what was the manna? Did it come from the Ark of the Covenant? Did it come from heaven?
No.
What was it? Did they eat it? Did they just breathe it in?
No, they ate it.
Okay.
No, they ate it. The thing about manna, this is like the amazing thing. Okay. I wasn't going to get all religious with you, but people want me to explain. I'll explain, okay? The reason God gave us an appetite, that you need food, and you also can't store up like a camel stores up on water for a month. It's a blessing that we have an appetite we need to eat every day. For a healthy body, you could obviously, in certain circumstances, a person can go a day or two or perhaps longer without food. But for the most part, in a healthy diet, the human body needs food. And that is so that we are dependent on God. we actually say that when God curses the snake, he basically doesn't want to kill him off. So he basically like, okay, I'm going to let you eat from the dirt of the earth. I don't need, that's always there. You're not going to need me. Since you're not going to need me, I'm not going to deal with you and have you come like basically communicating with me. But it's basically designed to motivate us to appreciate God and the fact that we get sustenance from God, and that we need to continually remind ourselves of that and reinfuse that within ourselves. So like when I make a blessing, when I make it properly, which is all too infrequently, like I try to remember that the reason I'm hungry now is so that I'll appreciate the gifts, the gift of food, and not just food that actually nourishes me, but actually hopefully and often tastes amazing. So it's like something I'm able to enjoy and is giving me nourishment, and it's basically an opportunity for me to just even for a moment to just be appreciative of God. So so the manna, instead of falling in a lump sum that would be stored in a silo, it's literally every day. And the manna would last for one day, and then it would rot. And it was one of the miracles in the manna is that since they would bake it, they would cook it, they would basically, I assume it was some sort of doughy type of thing, but it was basically ready to eat consumable food that that they was nourishing them. Apparently there was like no waste byproduct, like they went like an entire generation without having any waste byproduct. So, and that there was a lot of different lessons that we say came from the manna. Those people who were righteous, it came to them much more easily, able to find it. They would go out and collect it, and you could only collect a certain amount and per person, and it was like the right level of nourishment for each person. So when you might have heard with respect to the ark is that Moses told Aaron to collect a vial full of manna and put it away inside the ark for future generations as proof that this actually happened. But that basically the miracle of manna stopped when God led them into Canaan, and they were able to get subsistence off the land at that point in time. But you got muted there. I don't hear you at all.
So it's like lembas bread from Lord of the Rings. You know, the bread that the elves gave the people. It's
The
kinda
difference being that supposedly it was like delicious, but yeah, essentially, as far as it's as far as what it was supposed to accomplish, yes. All right. 10 rules were bad enough. Who decided to write the Torah? It's who decided to write the Torah? God. God decides to write the Torah. I don't know. I don't write the rules. God decided to write it. I'm guiding you to the greatest song. What did the fox say is the greatest song? Really? What did the fox say? That's the greatest song of all time. I give you it's a good song. The greatest song? You could do better. Thank you, KB, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Oh, I love you too, Brian. Thank you so much, brother. Hello, don't mind me. Someone in the stream has to hear this. Firefighter Golf Celsius Silver Spotlight Broccoli Run Extinguisher.
It's some code word to activate the Manchurian Candidate or something. I don't know. I thought it'd be funny.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I liked it. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. Let me check over in the Rumble zone and make sure I didn't miss anything there. Okay, there you go. V-Sync saying that Elvis is a musician famous. What does the fox say? And also a song about Stonehenge. All right, there you go. So, oh my gosh, we're already an hour and 55 in. What else did I say I was going to cover? I think I had a lot more here. Yes, I want to talk about more wins for Trump. This is you know that we've been talking this week about how ICE is in the airports, right?
Yeah. Listen
to this loser. Listen Listen to this loser here. This is just unbelievable.
They told me you guys were here to help.
Yes.
So how? What are you doing to make these lines go away?
That's helping at the checkpoint.
But they're right here, hands in their vests, not helping out.
Oh, well, no. Oh, my God. They're right here.
So that TSA is not getting paid. You guys are getting paid.
Not everybody.
Yeah, of course you are. That's bullshit. Of course you're getting paid. Are you getting paid?
That's not nice.
What's not nice? Bullshit?
Having a conversation, that's all.
We're not having a conversation. I think you guys are thugs.
Okay. That's cool.
ICE are thugs.
Everybody. Everybody.
Oh, why? He's just saying that because they're black. That's not nice. That's racist. You're calling black guys thugs? I was told specifically by all these Democrats, if you call black guys thugs, you are racist.
Of course. Of course. The rules are always different.
And they're proud of my work. Are they proud of yours?
Absolutely.
They're proud that you antagonize and terrorize people?
I've never done that.
You belong to an organization that does. Whether you've done it personally or not, you're complicit because you are hired by one. Look at all of them. There's so many getting tapped out. TSA agents not getting paid. You guys are getting paid.
You can hear in his voice, the speaker is like sort of like nervous, like how do I word this properly?
He's shaking with so much estrogen.
Yes.
I am upset that my tax dollars are going to pay your fucking salary. God definitely doesn't bless your work. Thugs. Thugs.
You mentioned the black thing?
My tax dollars. And so many of you are brown. I'm Guatemalan. Aren't you ashamed
No,
of
as soon as he said he's Guatemalan, I said, are you a citizen? Do you have ID? That's what I would have said.
That's what they should.
You're
You're Guatemalan. Oh, not American. Good to know. Come with us.
You're not ashamed. All of you brown dudes, you're not ashamed. Do they make you not say stuff? Do they make you not say stuff? Why do you need to be here?
Just helping out. It's a nice thing to do.
So this idiot is sitting here harassing ICE for helping fill out in the shortages of TSA. This is what ICE is actually doing. One of the things they did was today is they saved a kid's life. At JFK Airport, as travelers waited in hours-long lines, an infant became unresponsive and stopped breathing. The panic of the child's family and nearby passengers were heard by an ICE agent stationed at a checkpoint. The heroic officer immediately sprang into action, rushing toward the cries, taking the child and performing a Heimlich maneuver that restored the infant's breathing after nearly 2 minutes. The officer's extraordinary bravery embodies a selfless service of DHS law enforcement. Let's catch the video of this. There's no audio here, I don't think. I don't think there was audio. Oh, there is audio. Amazing. Amazing. There you go. Really amazing. I don't know what the audio was of because you don't hear people talking or anything, so I don't know what that was audio of, but yeah.
Could have been just audio, whoever was filming the screen. It was probably not like, it was probably leaked by somebody. They took a video of the actual surveillance video on their phone or something. They're not like picking up the surrounding.
That's possible. It's possible. Not sure. So, I mean, that would explain it, but I don't know. Also, more bad signs for fans of Joe Biden. Democratic Party family rating amongst men: favorable 24, unfavorable 64, negative 40, negative 40. Unbelievable. Also, this poll from Open Source Zone. Not poll. RNC versus DNC cash on hand per the New York Times. The RNC has $102 million on hand. DNC has $15 million with us and $17.5 million in debt. This party is going down. They're going down in flames. And yet, we can't get the damn. You want to know why they're going down in flames, by the way. One reason is folks like this, like my governor over here, New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill, signs a law barring ICE agents from wearing face coverings.
You know, Harmeet Dillon tweeted. They posted. Harmeet Dillon tweeted just lol, LOL.
To this?
Yes.
Yeah, and for good reason.
Yeah, like okay, like because it was Mickey Sherrill tweeted out something. Oh, we passed this law. We're going to hold ISIS. You can't wear masks. Blah blah. She's like lol. Nice try.
Yeah, because she knows the Ninth Circuit already, like a month or two ago, rejected California when they tried doing the exact same stupidity. So it's like it's such like it's so stupid. It's lip service that's trying to sort of like pander to the craziest of the crazies, which is like such a temporary thing that's gonna be. It's DOA. It's like I said. I mean.
There are some voices. There are some voices on the, in the Democrat Party. You got Fetterman. You got a couple other people that are coming out, speaking out, saying this is crazy. You have to start turning these violent people over. You can't protect violent people. So we'll see. I don't know.
You think anything's going to come out of that?
I think someone's going to come out and lie, just like Spanberger lied in Virginia, just like Sherrill lied in New Jersey to try to get elected and claim they're one way and completely do the opposite, just like they did. Spanberger said, I am against redistricting. We're not going to do any redistricting. And then as soon as she gets in there redistricting in Virginia, first thing they do is try to take everybody's guns away and all this other stuff. And all these, it's like a nonstop. It's like they lie and say they're going to be moderate, but they're way far left.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically the Democrat Party. You've got the communists, AOC and Bernie Sanders, and then you've got the socialists like Mandami, who's a commie, and that. So,
well. Another benefit to having Trump in the White House, you might not have considered, it just lends an overall change in tone. And we're seeing that in Idaho, where a sweeping Idaho bill would criminalize transgender bathroom use in private businesses. So this is being reported by AP. Idaho lawmakers are considering a bill that would make it a crime for transgender people to use the bathroom that matches their gender identity, even inside privately owned businesses. At least 19 states, including Idaho, already have laws barring transgender people from using bathrooms and changing rooms that align with their gender in schools and, in some cases, other public places. The LGBTQ plus advocacy organization Movement Advancement Projects.
You didn't say that right. It's LGBTQ plus.
And by the way, look at what tracking the laws shows that 3 other states. But look at the acronym here of these
MAP. Yeah, it's the maps. It's the map. It's the map. It's always the maps.
That's their project, the MAP project. Tracking of the laws shows that 3 other states, and that's not an accident. There's no way that's an accident.
No. And I'm starting to wonder if Dora the Explorer is actually in on this, because she's always has that segment. Where's the map? Where's the map? Where's the map? Here's the map.
Shows that 3 other states, Florida, Kansas, Utah, have made it a criminal offense in some circumstances to violate the bathroom laws. By none of the others apply as broadly to private businesses as the Idaho bill, which covers any place of public accommodation, meaning any business or facility that serves the public. The state's Republican supermajority Senate is expected to vote on the bill this week, deciding whether to send it to Governor Brad Little's desk. Felony bathroom use. If the law is passed, anyone who enters a public facility like a bathroom or locker room designated for the opposite sex could be sentenced to a year in jail for a misdemeanor first offense, or up to 5 years in prison for a felony and second offense. That's a longer sentence than Idaho imposes for first drunken driving conviction or for displaying offensive sexual material in public. Protecting those spaces. Thank you so much. I thought I don't get this. I'm not supposed to get this. I'm on Brave. Protecting those spaces is a matter of public safety and decency, said Republican Senator Ben Toes told a Senate committee last week. Private spaces such as restrooms, changing areas, and showers are sex separated for a reason, Toes said. Individuals in these vulnerable settings have a reasonable expectation of privacy and security. So yeah, this is This is the Trump ripple effect. This is the Trump ripple effect. I have one more thing I want to share with you all before we close out tonight. And I just thought this is funny. I just thought this was really funny. I stumbled on it and I was like, should I use this as an opening? I'm like, I'm not going to end up using this as an opening. This made me laugh. The audacity of this woman. And Jim hasn't seen this yet. So I guess I'll be able to gauge from him how funny this is. This I thought was pretty good.
I have not seen this.
There
was one I saw that I was going to send you, but it was kind of long, and I didn't send it. It was like 5 minutes of this woman just going crazy in Minneapolis, this city council talking. Like, it was crazy. I was like, oh my God, this is nuts.
There we go.
You cannot be driving, ma'am. What are you doing? Come on.
I'm not driving. I'm a passenger in a.
I'm not driving. Let's see if we can make this a little bit louder. Do I have a volume control on this? I don't have volume control here. I only have that in Chrome. I don't have volume boost over here. You guys can hear it though, right? You can hear it, right, Jim?
I can hear it a little bit.
Car.
You're still not. I'm not hearing cases with people driving or as passengers in cars.
Okay, I will pull over right now.
Short of us coming out to everybody's house and doing these on boats and stuff in the summer, I don't know.
I'm sorry, I have an emergency. I'm going out of town for a family member, but I will have my driver pull over. Hang on 1 second. I'm sorry. I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to be in a car, but hang on 1 second.
Am I crazy, or does it not look like you're driving that car?
I'm not driving the car. I'm a passenger in the car, sir.
What side of the car?
You can see her turning the steering wheel.
On the left-hand side.
How would you be on the left-hand side if you're a passenger in the front seat? Am I missing something?
Right-hand side. I'm sorry. I've been sitting in a room. I didn't know.
Can you close your eyes?
Off of the driver's side. Right? You're lying to me, right?
No, I'm not, sir.
Let me see the driver.
Let me see the driver.
Let me see the driver. Oh, I was like, this is great. And sometimes the mirror could be it could be a mirror image.
Yeah.
So it could be that. But that face was priceless.
Let me see the driver. Let me see the driver.
Hang on 1 second.
Now.
I have to ask their permission.
Now.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're not in the you weren't in the driver's side. You think I'm that stupid? I'm going to go ahead and enter a default judgment. Our paperwork says that we can't that they can't drive. Does it not, Jennifer?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I took a breath in and started choking. Well, I missed.
Does our
And laughter.
paperwork not tell people that they can't be in a car?
I don't know, Your Honor. I'd have to look at it again. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Looking at it does not say that I cannot be in a car.
I'm entering a default judgment. You lied to me. Judgment 1921-85. Send me your counsel and put in there defendant was not available at the time and then was driving a car and telling the court she was not. I'm entering a default judgment. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Aunt.
He signed in at 1:30, sir.
Well, you got an attitude with you. I'll tell you that. You got an attitude. I'm not putting up with this nonsense.
Did she curse at the judge? Because that could get you contempt. Like,
It could have. I was like, this is society today. Unbelievable. But it's nice to see justice
that's one
quickly,
massive Uber charge right there.
quickly dispensed. Anyway, I thought I was laughing when I first saw it. So I figured maybe you guys would enjoy it too. That's my show. I'm sticking to it. Do you have any thoughts about like where people can find you, Jim?
Oh, people can find me at Jim Tells You. I had a great show Tuesday night, Joe. I didn't say anything about it but I happened to, like, I was in Robert Gavea's chat, and one of the people that are in my chat all the time, mentioned to Robert that, hey, we should raid this guy's channel. And Robert's like, oh, I'll raid his channel. So I started at 7:15, and man, he raided my channel. I got 50 subs.
Nice.
It was nice, yeah.
Awesome. That is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so
Wow, that he's a legend.
he's a good guy. Yeah, he's a real good guy.
He's amazing. That's great. That's really awesome.
But yeah, I'm just Jim tells you everywhere. That's all.
I
don't
you.
tell you everywhere. I'm Jim tells you on.
Jim
every
tells
platform.
you. He doesn't tell you that he's Jim tells you, but he is Jim tells you. So yeah, he is Jim tells you. If he ever sends me a link, I'll put it in my description. You can pin it in the chat.
I always forget to do this.
You can pin in the chat, do all that other stuff and things of
always
that
forget to
nature,
do
so we can actually make sure it's remedied and
I'll let everybody see Bella for the
easy. Everyone
These are
loves
yelling Bella. Bella. See Bella.
Everyone loves Bella. Who doesn't love Bella? Everyone loves Bella. And yeah, so that is I'll put it over here. All right, it is now in your description over there. I urge you guys all to check him out and make sure that when you check him out, you sub up to him, because Jim is awesome. And I'm only doing you a favor. That's my show. That's my week. Obviously, I'm not going to be here tomorrow evening. I probably am going to be on Layback Law if they have a show tomorrow. Probably will. We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen there. You'll find that out at locals, goodlogic.locals.com, goodlogic.locals.com. You know what they say? Lab meat, not meant for you. It's meant for they,
Did you
them.
hear about Florida?
I forgot to cover that story. I meant to cover it. We'll save it. We'll save it.
I won't spoil it. I'll let it go.
We'll save it.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other thing I would say is, for the love of God, whatever you do, please, please, please do not eat the bugs. Have a good night, everyone. And as always, Godspeed.